Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of How I Doubled. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at a world where childcare meets technology. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of How I Doubled. My name is Pete Quist and today we have a very special episode. There's always a question of what men and women from the armed forces do after they're finished, but today we're going to find out how one man pivoted and went into technology and childcare. It's an interesting story, turning a business, turning over more than $4.5 million a year, doubling within the last 2 years. From Woodland Education and Explore, please welcome Mark Woodland. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, I'm confused. Let's kick it off. Technology, childcare, how do they mix?
It started as a childcare business. We started with a 33-place childcare centre in a Melbourne suburb called Croydon, probably 40 minutes from the CBD. Your standard childcare centre. It's a renovated house. It has a backyard as the converted playground, 3 rooms, and it was approximately 33 places, so 33 children in total. So from there we discovered that there are some really outdated things happening in the industry. Things like daily journals, which is a book a parent gets at the end of each day, discussing what that child did during the day and making some observations and what they call learning stories about the child and their learning story. A parent gets that book, they read that book at the end of the day at 6 o'clock when all they want to do is go home, and then they put the book back in the little container and off they go. Sometimes on a Friday night they'll take that book home and it may never come back. It will come back after being in the washing machine or something like that. So in essence, childcare centres are printing these books or journals for each individual child, 364 days or 52 weeks of the year. So there's endless costs, just printing alone. If you could imagine just printing a piece of paper and then printing photos onto that piece of paper, gluing them in, cutting them out, writing them down. A lot of time and effort goes into the journals. Now that's just one side of the story. Another option for centres is they just might write all this information on a whiteboard. So as a parent, you just walk in and you'll get a tick next to your name saying a nappy's been changed, they had something to eat, off you go. So you can see very quickly what a parent it's not a great feeling when they go to pick up their child. They want to know what their child's learnt, they want to be involved, and at the same time, parents need to work. They need to get back into the economy, they need to start working to support their family, and they feel a lot of guilt. So we were seeing this every single day. We were dealing with this every single day. I'm not a big fan of paper at the best of times, so it was really making me start to think of how can this be done better. And so that's how Explore was born. So Explore was born in 2010. I think that's when the first iPad came out. And we started playing with iPads and developing an app at that stage that could notify a parent of when their nappies were changed, when a child had had a certain amount of formula, how much medication they might have had. And then alongside of that, we were able to take photos, write a learning outcome, write a description about what the child's doing, and send that to the parent. And all of a sudden we had this concept that allowed us to give a digital portfolio to a parent, but not at the end of the day, it was happening throughout the day. So parents were now connected with their child while they're at work, and all of a sudden that guilt factor disappeared. And I remember early days, parents would show their bosses as soon as they got their first notification, look at the photo I got. And I had one parent tell me that was the routine. Everyone would crowd around to wait and see the first picture for the day. And then Explore just took off from there. We opened our second centre in East Melbourne, which is just near the MCG for non-Melbourne people. And that was a 100-place centre. So you can see how things now, well, we tripled the size of the centre. And lessons learnt, and we introduced Explore. Was still very early days at that time, but it meant we weren't printing journals, so we're saving massive costs in printing journals and keeping track of children's outcomes and connecting with parents. And just a small thing, what we found once we went to the very big centres was that the phone calls stopped. So all of a sudden we weren't having phones ringing off the hook saying, how is my child? What are they eating? When was their nappy changed? Because parents were getting this information throughout the day. So those questions stopped, which means the phone stopped ringing, which all of a sudden we didn't need an administrator sitting there just answering phones all day, because the app was doing it. And because the educators could instantly respond to a parent's concern, the parents are very happy. So all of a sudden our customer service levels went up because parents were getting a response instantly. They're not waiting for the end of the day, they're not waiting for a phone to be answered or an email to be replied to. And so then in 2014, the years escape, but 2014, we opened our biggest centre on St Kilda Road, and that's the one everyone now has started to talk about. Apart from all the technology, that centre we just flipped. We flipped the concept completely upside down. It's in a 12-storey building, so the centre occupies the ground floor, which is where we have our nursery. It then occupies level 11, which is where we have our 1 through to 5-year-olds in their different age groups, and then we occupy the rooftop, which is the children's outdoor playground. And so, and there's some cool stories. New parents come along to the centre all the time, and we throw away lines that we're going to the roof to play, and a lot of people have heart attacks when they hear that, but for us it's quite normal. So that's the concept now that we're in, and with Explore, which really exploded in probably 2014, is now all of a sudden we send videos to parents. So we've still do the photos, but once you get a video, the entire timeline is what we call a child's timeline of their learning comes to life, and parents are getting videos and photos. And as of 3 months ago, we launched what we call live broadcast. And what that allows educators to do is send a live broadcast to a parent, which might be the child's first steps, and the parents can jump in, they get notified, they jump into the live broadcast and witness that in real time. And so they see it happening as the child's experiencing it, as the educator's experiencing it, and they're part of it. And that goes for birthdays, it goes for all the first moments, first steps, first crawls, first smiles. Parents no longer miss that because they're part of it. And what Explore has allowed us to do in its its most recent stage is connect grandparents. So we call our grandparents or friends of the family explorers. And what that allows a family to do is invite their mum and dad or the child's grandparents to join in on the learning. So the grandparents now who might be overseas or interstate or don't get to see their grandchildren anymore can now hook in and see everything that the parent sees. The only thing we don't do is let the grandparents comment. So we only take direction from the parent. But Explore's blown us away. Explore, that's helped us with our St Kilda campus, is we built in all sorts of different efficiencies. Automation is a big one that lets us automate our parents sign in and sign out process. Usually at other centres they'll have a book and they'll sign in on the book, and the director will take that book and scan it and copy it and send it off to the government. Using Beacon technology, parents can just walk in and walk out of our front doors, and it's signing them in and out and sending stuff off automatically to the software. And then we've automated the timesheet and the payroll process, so staff members now just walk through the staff room and it automatically logs their timesheet because the beacons know when they're there, and off they go. So there's no more endless timesheets and things like that. So it's really a combination, and as of the last 2 months, Explore is separated from Woodland Education because we've made Explore available to the general public. So we've got quite a few centres now using Explore across the country, and Woodland Education is doing what Woodland Education does and redefining that education space, be it longer opening hours, be it different developmental groups. Everything we do, and everyone says they're different, but everything we've done is different. it's completely different.
Well, that brings us perfectly into our first point, which is be an innovator. And we've already mentioned some of the things that you've done. I mean, when we started, I was kind of wondering how technology and childcare fit, but it seems like it is a fairly straightforward fit. But you guys have had to be the innovators in this space, and that doesn't come without its challenges.
Yeah, exactly right. You hear the stories, and we all love them. The overnight success, the app that was bought for $30 million. But what we don't see, and it's upsetting, because you have children that leave school and think that they're going to build an app, and off they go, and they're set for life. But what you don't see is the 5 years that come before that. It's always that you plant the seed, but you don't see anything because the roots are growing underneath. So for us, it's been no different. It sounds like a great success story, and we're blown away by it, and it is. But there's been some real hard work leading up to this point. I think every single day, especially when we started talking about using apps and digital platforms, and this was 2010, so it doesn't sound like long ago, but if we cast our minds back, that's when the first iPad came out. So you cast your minds back then, and the App Store was only tiny. We take these things for granted, and then when we come along and say we're going to do this, and we're going to send you photos and videos and updates throughout the day, there's a lot of pushback. Can't be done. I don't know how many times I've heard it can't be done, or no, that won't work, and the worst part is it's usually from the people that are really, really close to you, be it family, be it friends. No, that's not going to work. And so I've always got the attitude, okay, if you tell me no, I'm most likely going to go do it just to prove a point. And so that's been a big drive for me, but it's more so perseverance, or some people call it resilience, or whatever you want to call it, because you really don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And that day you give up, you don't know if tomorrow is going to be the day that someone says, here's that magic offer. You just don't know. So if you just keep going and keep going, you eventually get there. And it sounds like a throwaway line, but I don't know how many times I've sat down and either spoken to a family member or a business partner and said, we're not going to make tomorrow. It's not going to happen. We're done, and then tomorrow comes. And then the tomorrow comes, and then tomorrow comes, and you're still here. And then one day you get a call and saying, hey, this app, in our case, is mind-blowing. Can we talk to you about it? And so that's how we got to where we are here.
Were you risking much at the time? Was there ever a time in this business progression that you were putting your own money on the line?
The whole time, even today, I put my own money on the line every single day. And it was really, really, really hard. Incredibly hard. There was a time my wife was working 3 jobs to support me in this crazy concept, and she was working till midnight, and here I am just trying to tell the world that this can work. And then you've got the pressures outside. You've got families saying, why aren't you doing something? And all the rest of that type of stuff. And it's not easy. There's been times in the childcare industry where we've said, these ideas, people aren't interested. We're getting pushback from regulatory authorities. We're getting pushback from everyone. Are we doing something wrong? And then just one day, everyone switches. It's like a switch. People change their mind, and all of a sudden, this app is amazing.
Do you remember that day?
I still don't believe it. I still have real problems believing. I believe in what I've done and what I'm doing. But every day I get people come to me and say, I've got some spare money, can I invest? And we're saying, well, thank you, I'm blown away, but at this point we just don't need it, because everything I've had has been put on the line. And so now I see that fruit. And it hasn't been 2 months we've launched to the public, so people will hear this story, okay, he's been doing it for 2 months. Been doing it for about 5 years. It was but I guess the biggest thing, it was never done to make money. It was always done to solve a problem. And by solving that problem, and it was solving a
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.